In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys 7 crucial pieces of advice for taking care of your bettas. When it comes to taking care of our bettas, a lot of the time the message gets convoluted as to the best ways to take care of bettas. Over the last year, I've had quite a bit of experience with taking care of bettas. I do a lot of betta breeding in my fish room, and the way I keep bettas is going to be very different to the way that I'm recommending to a lot of people today. When it comes to the way I take care of bettas, this is my full-time job and I can spend a lot of time changing water, and a lot of the time the bettas that I have in my fish room only stay in my fish room for about a month before they get moved on to their real homes. In today's video, the goal is to give you guys the tools for taking care of a betta long term and giving it the best life possible. So I've broken down all my knowledge into 7 pieces of advice that I would recommend to a betta keeper to have better results. The first thing I recommend correlates to the tank. So a lot of the time people will keep their bettas in jars and bowls, and I keep a lot of my breeders in smaller containers that I have to change daily. Like I said, these breeders are only in these containers for about a month, so it doesn't really matter too much. I'd prefer to have them in a different container, but it's really just not viable with the space I have. The bettas don't mind too much, but keeping them in there long term would not be good. And what I'd recommend to a lot of people who want to keep these bettas as their sole pet in their room or something like that is that you need at least 5 gallons of space for these bettas to really thrive. Will a betta survive in a bowl or in a container? Yes, but long term it's obviously not going to be the best thing for that fish, and it's not going to provide it the best life. We're talking about giving our bettas the best possible conditions to have a really good life. So it is important that you get a tank that's at least 5 gallons, and that's going to be my first piece of advice. The second thing that I've learned about bettas over the last year is to only feed them small amounts. Bettas are absolute grubs and they can eat a massive amount of food when given the opportunity. And something sadly that bettas are really prone to is dropsy. Simply put, dropsy is just an internal bacterial infection that normally results from overfeeding and issues that overfeeding causes. So I have accidentally a few times overfed a few fish from my brood stock, and sadly I did lose a few fish from this issue, but since then I've really learnt my lesson and I've been focusing on trying to feed all my bettas the correct amount. What I do is feed my bettas very small amounts of food twice a day, and you'll be surprised, bettas really don't need a lot of food, just a few pellets and they'll do absolutely fantastic. I used to feed my fish a lot because they were always hungry and they wouldn't stop eating, and it is tempting to continue to feed them, but it's not good for their health. Really, bettas only need a little bit of food twice a day and then they're not going to have any problems. Overfeeding can be a really big issue, and it's just something that I really focus on with all of my fish. So don't overfeed your bettas. It's very easy to do because they are complete grubs, but that's my second piece of advice. My third piece of advice is to add botanicals to your tank. A lot of people don't know, but bettas are actually like a blackwater fish, and a blackwater fish is just basically a fish that comes from high tannin environments and kind of more swampy environments and dark areas. Bettas originate from pools of water in like Thailand, I think, I'm not too sure. Southeast Asia basically. All those pools have a low pH and very dark tannin-y water. And the way we can replicate this with our aquariums is to add botanicals. Bettas absolutely love botanicals. They release a bunch of tannins into the water which help to bring the pH down and work as antifungals and antibacterials and really support the betta's health and immunity. The best botanicals that I like to add to my tanks is Indian almond leaves. There's other different types, but definitely the best ones are Indian almond leaves. I've added eucalyptus before and things like that, but it just doesn't do the same as the Indian almond leaves. So you can pick these up online. They'll probably cost you about $1 each, and you only really need to add one after every water change. And yeah, the bettas absolutely love having them in the tank. It really does have a lot of beneficial impacts with your betta's health. The fourth thing is to add like a hammock to your aquarium. So bettas really do like chilling out. When they're not really swimming around exploring the aquarium, they might want to just have a rest, and it's better to give them somewhere natural to rest or somewhere mimicking a natural environment to rest than just the gravel floor on the bottom of your tank. I recommend adding like either a betta hammock or some kind of live plant with big broad leaves like Anubias or even Amazon swords, just for that betta to go and chill in and have a relax and just to vibe out in. You don't want your betta swimming around all the time. You do want to have quite a low flow aquarium. Adding a little chill space for the betta does really help, and it's cool because you'll see a betta once a day kind of chilling out there. It's just really sweet. So add a hammock to your aquarium. The fifth thing that I've learned about bettas is that they are actually a really good community fish, and while we call them fighting fish and they get the reputation of being aggressive, this is really only towards other bettas, so you can't keep 2 bettas together. Even with female sororities, I've had issues before. I'd always recommend keeping a betta solo, but you can add tank mates to your little aquarium. So say you got a 5 or a 10 gallon aquarium, sometimes it does help to actually add a few tank mates to that aquarium to keep your Betta active and not bored. It keeps your Betta interested. I'd recommend adding a few nano fish to that tank just to liven up the tank a little bit, and it will improve your Betta's happiness and activity within the tanks. Some really good species would be just like some micro rasboras, some celestial pearl danios, even some neon tetras would be alright. Things like that. Do your own research on it though, and have a look around at some little microfish that you can keep with your Bettas. It could be a great way to just spice up the tank and make it a little bit more interesting, and also help improve your Betta's activity and mood in the aquarium. Tip number 6 is going to be regarding the heat of Bettas. So people keep these fish in relatively cool environments because, well, they can handle it. In my opinion, it's not the best to keep Bettas in cool aquariums because firstly, it impacts their immunity. They're going to be more susceptible to diseases, and it's not really good for their metabolism and overall just their health to keep them in cooler water of like 72 degrees or 22 to 23 degrees Celsius. I always bump up my Bettas to at least 26 to 27 degrees Celsius or 80 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. In my opinion, this is the best temperature to keep all your Bettas at. It helps their digestion, it helps with their immunity, and it just keeps the Betta happy. It's the natural environment's temperature, and while they can have cooler water, I just never recommend it. Always add a heater to your aquarium and keep it around that temperature to keep your Betta really happy. Finally, tip number 7 is going to be really important, like probably the most important thing on this list, and this is going to be to add a lid to your aquarium. So a lot of people keep their aquariums without lids, or they leave the lid open, and Bettas are jumpers. The way they get around those pools in Thailand is by jumping from pool to pool. So they've gotten really good over time at leaving the water to get into another body of water, and sometimes this can result in a Betta jumping out of a tank to try and get like a little bug or something outside, or they just want to jump out, and they jump out on the floor and dry out, sadly. So it's really important to always make sure you got a lid on the tank, and to make sure that if you don't have a lid, you get something, because otherwise the Betta will just inevitably jump out, especially if you're keeping it really healthy and happy. It's going to have a lot of energy and it will try jumping out. So adding a lid to your tank is so important. I don't want people to lose their fish stupid ways. It really sucks losing a Betta to it jumping out. That's my final tip, and I guess like a little bonus tip like I was talking about before would be to make sure that your aquarium's not got like very high flow. Bettas kind of like stagnant water, so just a little bit of flow does help them, but we don't want to have a lot of turbulence in the tank. It doesn't help them at all. That's everything that I've learnt really over the last year with keeping Bettas, and I hope you guys can have a lot of success with your Betta keeping, and I'll see you guys in the next video.